Just know that the SPD was the big left party for decades, onto their right-wing rival.
Die Christlich-Demokratische Union.
The Christian Democratic Union. Like Christian, even has like a religion attached to it as well.
Oh, I love you more than words can say.
Yeah, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy, Shady Shade, the very one and the only. Ich bin Shady Shade, the Ansiger. So, guys, today, I had a comment from Lucas Bender saying, hey, if you're also interested in German politics, I just made a video about that. We've got a big election coming up this Sunday, so you might want to check that out, guys, okay? So, without saying too much, guys, let's check this out, guys, okay? Let's check this out. I'm very curious about Germany, as you guys know already, because growing up, I've always believed that the UK was the greatest nation in the world, America second, and then I got to hear about Germany, and I'm really intrigued at Germany. I'm really intrigued, I'm not gonna lie. So guys, let's continue exploring, okay? But before we start this video, you know what to do. Smash like, subscribe, give me some love, and let's do this, guys. So bro, just take a subscribe, okay? I'm gonna check you out some more, and a like as well. So German political parties explained.
The political parties in Germany. Who are they?
Okay.
What do they do? And what do people think of them? Well, let's find out.
Let's go. Lucas Bender.
So until there are dozens of parties in Germany, but for national politics we can focus on just 6.
Okay.
7 if you're a pedantic know-it-all. And how do we know these 6 are the important ones? Well, they're the only ones with seats in the national parliament. The other ones are either too small to get in or too regional to matter. I'm sorry, Magdeburger Gartenpartei, we're here for the big guys. Just like
Sounds like the name of a restaurant.
most democracies on this planet, German politics were once dominated by 2 major parties. One of
Okay.
the broad, more progressive center-left, and one of the broad, more conservative center-right. But as we
like
shall see, the whole
Tories
power
and
dynamic
Labour.
has changed quite a bit, especially in recent years when minor parties have become much more relevant and powerful. There will be time codes for all of these, but for now let's start with
Die Sozialdemokratische Partei Deutschlands, SPD.
this is the supposedly
Okay.
big party of the center-left. It's the oldest party in Germany, emerging from socialist movements of the 1860s before moderating into what it is today. If you're familiar with any of the many Labour parties around the world, like the UK one or the New Zealand one or the Dutch
UK one,
Partij van de
definitely.
Arbeid, you probably have a good idea of the SPD's basic profile.
So basically, if I'm gonna vote for SPD then. Is that what you mean?
Which is being the party of solidarity. A kind of solidarity that's expressed by a strong welfare state focusing on the working class as well as overall social and economic justice.
Yeah.
Accordingly, their main focus has always been on the blue-collar worker, you know, your coal miner, metal worker, cleaner, hands-on
Hard workers.
kind of jobs. But these days they're really struggling to keep that aura of the grand old workers' party alive. You might be getting different explanations for why that is, depending on if you're talking to a more left-wing social democrat or a more pragmatic moderate. Those 2 wings of the party tend to clash from time to time. But either way, just know that the SPD was the big left party for decades, onto their right-wing rival.
Die Christlich-Demokratische Union.
The Christian Democratic Union. Like Christian, even has like a religion attached to it as well. Okay, let's go.
CDU.
The CDU is a juggernaut in German politics. Most of our
Okay.
chancellors have been CDU, which makes them the sort of default.
Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel. I can't pronounce her name. Angela Merkel. Yeah, her. So she's CDU.
power party, but just like the SPD, their
They're
shine is
conservative.
starting to wear off a little. When foreigners hear the name Christian Democratic Union, they often think that it's a sort of hardline religious group, which let me be clear, it's definitely not. No, they're just sort of culturally Christian, right? So moderately conservative, sort of the more regressive, cautious force, in line with many of the right-wing parties across the continent. Traditionally, they're made up of social Christians, economic liberals, and conservatives. And no, I didn't just come up with these categories. No, the party quite ostentatiously advertises with these 3 pillars of the union. But
So why did they have Christian in the name? They should just remove Christian and put a different thing. Because as soon as you see Christian, the first that comes to your mind is religion. It's like calling an MDU, Muslim Democratic Union. Anyway, I'm not judging. I'm just saying from a layman point of view, someone hearing this for the first time, that's what he's going to think. He's going to be like, oh, they're all church goers. They're all Christian, yeah? Okay. Maybe all Christians are going to vote for them then.
But you won't be wrong just calling them the Conservative Party of Germany. As such, they're most concerned with things like public safety, tradition, frugal spending, things like that. Oh, and overall they're quite moderate, which has won them many elections, but just like with the SPD, there's a growing desire from the more ideological wing of the party to become more unapologetically conservative again.
Okay,
so far so easy, right? Two parties split along the standard Western left-right divide. And the thing is, we would have almost been stuck with that two-party system if it weren't for
Die Freie Demokratische Partei, FDP.
Yeah, this one guy has always managed to squeeze in. The word free should have already given away what the Free Democrats stand for. Freedom. Or if you want to be fancy, we could also call it liberalism.
I was about to say the Liberal Democrats in the UK. Yeah.
How exactly that freedom is defined may vary between the different factions of the party. You know, you've got your social liberals, economic liberals, and national liberals, which is what we call the sort of right-wing libertarian kind of liberal. But really, these differences are minuscule. The important bit is they all agree that the individual should be at the center of all policy. That makes them both very open and progressive in a kind of we shouldn't tell other people how to live stance, as well as very capitalist. So they're all about lower taxes, decreasing bureaucracy, and competition. If you are into that sort of politics, chances are that you're from a sort of upper middle class to upper class household. Maybe you're a big shot business person or self-employed, or you founded one of these trendy hipster startups. Or at least that's the sort of person that usually votes for the FDP. Well, that and farmers. Now, I already mentioned that the FDP was sort of the
much, but it's an honest day's work.
Reason we didn't end up with a two-party system, and I mean that quite literally. There were a few decades when we only had three parties in parliament, the two big ones and then the FDP as the small third.
Okay, let's talk about FDP. Like, the idea behind the FDP sounds really good. Putting the individual at the center of their policies, it sounds really, really good. But then I trust there's some big-time downsides to that.
Third option. But don't think small equals unimportant. No, that was actually a really comfortable situation for the FDP to be in, because they alone could choose who would rule the country. I mean, obviously not alone, but the success of the FDP always made it so that neither of the big parties could get an outright majority. And that's how the Liberals earned the rather unflattering title of the Kingmaker, who's only there to break the tie.
Oh, I see.
But these days they're really trying to get away from that image by highlighting their tech savviness, for example.
Bündnis 90, die Grünen.
Next up are the Greens, who came in much later. Like
the Greens,
we're talking
the Green Party.
1980s here. The Greens are actually quite different from all of the other parties, since they grew out of these protest movements from the late 60s to late 70s, who advocated for all sorts of issues like women's rights, anti-war, anti-nuclear power, and obviously environmentalism. And they kept that revolutionary spirit going even after they upgraded to a proper party. Like, look at them! Look how uncomfortable he is. All those high-class politicians suddenly sitting next to literal hippies knitting in parliament. Now, obviously the old parties weren't happy with those.
Yeah, they look like they're in the streets. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, they look like they just came off the streets, bro. They haven't got that political standing, that political aura about them. Yeah, they've got that rawness.
Look how uncomfortable he is. All those high-class politicians suddenly sitting next to literal hippies knitting in parliament. Now, obviously the old parties weren't happy with those green weirdos. I bet they don't even shower, they'd say. But then came a time in which the Liberals firmly placed themselves at the right hand of the Conservatives. Suddenly the Labour Party was without a partner. I think you can see where this is going.
It's like, baby.
Green guy.
Baby.
I didn't mean what I said about
baby
not showering.
Baby.
You actually smell quite nice.
Love.
And that's going to be what's been considered kind of the natural state of German politics ever since, a red-green alliance as counterweight against a liberal-conservative one. Since then, the Greens have undergone a sometimes messy evolution, with lots of infighting between their more left fundamentalist wing, called the Fundis, and their more moderate, sometimes even conservative wing, the Realos. However, that division seems to disappear a little, since the Greens have grown so much in the recent years. Like, they've become massively popular, at least for the time being. They're still a very explicitly feminist party and fairly interventionist economically, but they try to soften the edges a bit to seem more appealing to a wider audience. It's 1989. David
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too into politics. When it comes to politics, I'm not like too deeply into that. But I just think that the Tories are a bit too stern, a bit too strict. Okay, they haven't got that softness, that human touch, and that's one reason why I lean more towards Labour. But I don't vote Labour all the time, but I lean more towards Labour. Okay, because they just have that thing, like they do actually care.
It's 1989. David Hasselhoff has just torn down the wall. East and West will finally reunite. What a major historical event. You'd expect the end of the Cold War to be a pretty big political earthquake, wouldn't you? One that's surely going to leave its mark on the German party system. But remarkably, it wasn't. The few parties that did emerge from the New East were quickly sucked up by their already existing Western counterparts, just like basically everything about the East. The only exception is Die Linke, which is the Eastern Party. So you might already be aware that East Germany was a dictatorship for 40 years. It was ruled in this very repressive way by one single party, the Socialist Unity Party, or SED. But here's the thing, when the wall fell and East Germany...
Socialist Unionist Party, is that what it said? The Socialist Unity Party, SED, it's not supposed to be SUP.
Party, or SED. But here's the thing, when the wall fell and East Germany finally got some proper democracy, that party was not outlawed. No, it got to continue in the United Germany, but now reduced from a singular, unopposed regime to just one of many contenders in the democratic process. One with minimal success. Turns out having led a dictatorship doesn't actually sound good on your resume. No. So in order to rebrand itself, the SED quickly changed its name to PDS, the Party of Democratic Socialism. The old Western parties were of course very much opposed to this new party, like even more so than against the Greens. But by this time the PDS had already assumed a new role. That of the niche interest party for Eastern Germans. Turns out many people from the East were nostalgic, or at least sympathetic to the SED. So even though the Eastern Bloc had collapsed, socialism was very much still on the table. A little detour. What's the difference between socialism and social democracy?
Yo, why are you asking me questions? Are you a teacher? Are you a teacher? Oh my. Okay, so socialism is like a government run by the whole community. As a whole, something like that. Guys, please don't judge me. Social democracy is like a system of government that's attained by democratic means, by the majority choosing and voting. And Shady, how do you know these answers?
In many countries, the word socialism can mean a whole bunch of things, from public healthcare to abolishing property. And if the word social democracy is even used, it's usually understood to be on the same spectrum as socialism. But I think most Germans would probably cringe at that, since historically we understand those two terms to be different categories. Okay. Now I know there are a whole bunch of scientific definitions for those words, but I think conventional wisdom in Germany has it that socialism tries to overcome capitalism, whereas social democracy tries to rein in its destructive powers. Again, you might call this just a matter of degree, but here we perceive those two parties to be on different slots of the political spectrum. One of them with considerably more historical baggage. Just to finish this off, it's actually quite hard for me to see what kinds of factions there are within Die Linke. I mean, obviously there are all sorts of flavors of different doctrinaire socialist beliefs, with most of them belonging to a more settled professional class. But then you do get the occasional nutcase who's still under surveillance of the German intelligence service. So for many people it's kind of a mixed bag. Despite that, there's been a lot of talk recently about including the Linke into the center-left alliance together with the SPD and the Greens. The argument is that we're now 30 years removed from unification, and that the old guard has surely given way for a new generation of socialists to emerge who have nothing to do with the old dictatorship. You know, they just want to advocate for better wages and fighting poverty, but that's still up for debate. Die Linke is still associated with these radical economic proposals.
Yeah, like all politicians, they say things, but a lot of times they don't even do it. So in all these parties, which one is the corrupt one? Which one is the best one? Which one is the corrupt one? I don't know, left to me, like I said before, if I'm confused, about politicians, I just stick to Labour. Yeah, when I'm confused, because sometimes I read the policies, sometimes I check the manifestos, I'm like, which one should I vote for this time around? They're all making promises. And when I'm in doubt, I just go Labour.
The argument is that we're now 30 years removed from unification, and that the old guard has surely given way for a new generation of socialists to emerge who have nothing to do with the old dictatorship. You know, they just want to advocate for better wages and fighting poverty, but that's still up for debate. Die Linke is still associated with these radical economic proposals, as well as a weird pro-Russia stance.
Okay.
So, we'll see. Okay, last one. Controversial.
Die Alternative für Deutschland. AfD.
The AfD was founded in 2013 by a bunch of right-wing conservatives who mainly campaigned on getting rid of the euro and returning to Germany's old national currency. Boring?
Okay.
Yes. But no, believe it or not, that was actually quite shocking. Our political parties share a large consensus, so they're all broadly for the European Union, they're all...
I think if you change back to your old German currency, the Deutschmark, oh, your economy is going to suffer a bit. Yeah, I mean, the value of the Deutschmark is still going to be really high, but your economy is going to suffer. It's going to suffer because then trade, I mean, it's going to be too expensive to trade with you.
They're all broadly for the same economic system, and they all broadly agree that climate change is really bad. And now the AfD came in to, shake things up a bit. Back then in 2013, I thought the AfD might become the sort of mirror image of Die Linke, where they occupy the same kind of spot in our political scene, just on the opposite side. One where they criticize the moderate center from a more ideological, populist perspective. That didn't happen. Instead, what happened was that the AfD was quickly taken over by far-right extremists with overt ties to neo-Nazi organizations with just despicably racist, homophobic, revisionist beliefs. The supposedly conservative side of the party has for the most part been on board with this partnership, although some have left out of protest, including the original founder of the party, which can never be a good sign. Yeah, and you can imagine that they stylize themselves as a sort of fighters against SJW culture. They're hard on immigrants. They are the only rescue for a dying Germany. And that would be the good right. Like, maybe the conservatives are too mild. Maybe we did need a more staunchly right-wing party in parliament. But there's this vicious anti-democratic tendency that permeates the entire party, which is just sad.
Sounds terrible.
And yeah, in case you're wondering, the other parties have erected a giant wall between themselves and the AfD, deeming them basically untouchable. Will the AfD actually gain power? Like, maybe someday, but not now. Like, if the Greens or Die Linke have taught us anything, then that with more moderation, you will gain power in Germany. If you don't moderate, you're out.
Downfall.
Dun dun dun.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't exactly end this on a high note.
Interesting.
I still hope you had fun, and hopefully you now understand a little bit more about sort of German politics. Just thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay civil in the comments, like, obviously. Don't battle to the death. It's just YouTube. And yeah, love yourself. Bye.
I love his closing. I love his closing. He said, love yourself. It's very important. Because if you don't love yourself, you can't love somebody else. Okay, I've listened to everything he said. Everything. All the parties that he's talked about, they kept deviating a bit from their original motto, their original manifesto. They deviated a bit, changed a bit. Imagine even the founder of the AfD left. He was like, I'm your dad, but you're abandoned. Anyway, guys, long and short, I'm not into politics at all. First, I was more Labour, but then, I don't know, politicians are usually politicians. So now what I started doing was listening to the manifestos, listening to the new policies, listening to all the promises they make, and then try to decide, okay, which one am I going to stick with? But so far from everything he said here, I don't know, I sort of like the liberal. Okay, I like the liberals because they seem to focus on the individual, but then they support capitalism. I mean, as much as capitalism, you know what? Let's not talk about that. Anyway, basically, if I'm going to stick to a party here, I think being moderate sounds good. Yeah, not far right, not too right. Being moderate sounds nice. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll stick with SPD. Who knows? CDC, Center for Disease Control. Sorry, not CDC. Yeah. I'm a CDU, the Tories. Anyways, me about Shady the one and only, guys. It's nice to know and have an insight into your political parties and see that it's very, very similar to the UK's. Very, very, very similar. And Yeah, thank you Lucas Bender for this. Okay, I really appreciate it, guys. I really appreciate it, guys. Do let me know what you think in the comment section. Also, do let me know what parties you think are best to vote on Sunday, because I hear you guys are having an election on Sunday. Okay, guys, do let me know what party you think are the best. Okay, it's been your boy Shady Shay, the one and only. Also, make sure you smash like, subscribe, give me some love. It's gonna be a peace out from me, guys.
Oh, I love you more than words can say. You are me. Oh, you are the light that shine in my way. You are me. Oh, I love you more than words can say. You are me. Oh, you are the light that shine in my way.